This is a logo that my subscriber sent to me. A few months ago, I asked my subscribers and followers over on Threads to send me logos that they wanted to see redesigned, and I picked this one. So Trey Van Camp, hopefully I will redesign this logo and give you something a little bit different. So first things first, what I like. So this icon here is very busy. We've not only got this kind of square, we've got another square that's in here and it's also rounded on the side, which when you have more elements in an icon, there's just more visuals to look at. It makes it more detailed. The main logo itself is this what we call monogram. The monogram is where you have like a letter inside of a letter cleverly placed. And although this looks good, it has some questionable looks inside it. It either looks like a tongue or something else. What I do love is this sans serif typeface, but it might be a bit boring. When thinking about a church and the brand, it should be obviously a little bit professional, but it should be about life as well. And there needs to be a clear system here. And the typography is kind of just what it is. One thing I do like is the shape of the P itself. Like it's got this very blocky sentiment here, which looks very masculine. When we think about a passion and creek, there's nothing really signifying the logo to be passionate other than the color red. So we've got a red color that is really nice, but it's more of that blood red. And also I don't see anything that shouts creek to me. If it's passion creek, I would have thought of maybe having a visual idea of kind of like a creek rolling in and out. A good little exercise to do when you're designing a logo is squint your eyes, kind of blur your vision. When you blur your vision on this logo, it kind of to me looks like a G in a weird way. But it just feels very blocky. There's nothing really in this actual icon that signifies Passion Creek. So let's come up with some ideas. When we think of the word passion, I think of church words. We have zeal, which means like excitement, passion. But also when we think of being passionate, it's like a fire, embers. We could do a heart. That's a cool idea for like a little word for passion. I like those. What about creek? Well, a creek has kind of got like this flow, like a stream or a river. Or like for me, it's kind of like a landscape you could do. So this here would be kind of a landscape here. That would be a cool one. Fire kind of looks like this, but if we're going to go really simple with a fire look, it might look a little bit like Tinder. So we've got like a fire symbol, like a really just easy clip art symbol. I think whenever we create logos, it's important as well to keep the symbolism, most of the time, quite simple so people understand. But if we were to jam a fire plus kind of like a creek together, that would work well. And one thing I have noticed by looking at this, when you're creating like these sort of flames, we do have kind of these lines here that could look like a creek. And the cool thing about this, I think that works really well, is that we could add imagery inside of this. Like if we were to create the brand, we could add pictures of people inside of this. It's got the passion in there, it's got the creek in there, and we're making it look really like it belongs. Now I'm gonna take this idea and put it inside of my programs and see where we get to. It's been a few days now since I started this idea, and the number one thing I figured out is that it's difficult. I wanted to get that creek style into the fire because passion, creek, it's in there, but that can seem a little too literal. So I thought, let's go deeper into the ideation of this. So I started sketching these icons of fire and trying to make them a bit more abstract. Now I was trying to go for this sort of stained glass, minimal vintage feeling throughout because I feel like that is where they're coming from. But the more I started to sketch, the more I realized that having a creek in the fire might make it look more like a leaf, which isn't a good thing. So I thought of the next best thing, mountains. We should put a mountain into the icon. So I took that really abstract, minimal flame shape and I worked out a way of creating a creek in there and having a mountain ridge on there. And it worked pretty well using just a white shape to block out the black, which is what we normally do. That's how I create negative space logos. But then we got to a point where we could just add this reflection on the top of the mountain and it just gave it some more definition and it felt really good. But there was a problem. It doesn't look right. Sure, it looks nice, but it's not the right style. It feels more like a modern outdoor logo. I'm looking for a more vintage style in a modern time frame because that's the style. I want this outdoorsy feel, but I also want it to feel modern. So I went back and drew a few more flames to find that perfect form. But every single time I was drawing, it would either look too vintage or it would look too clean when I pen tooled it back into Illustrator. I tried image tracing, I tried just doing it cleanly. The flame simply was just too abstract. We needed to make it more literal. But that's where the idea hit. The flame doesn't have to be a mountain. What if we put the mountain into the flame? So that's exactly what I did. First of all, I needed to come up with a good mountain design. There are thousands of ways of creating mountains, but because I was a hand lettering artist, I featured a lot of mountains in my old pieces of work. I thought this will be a breeze. The real problem came when trying to create a mountain that would work in negative space whilst not being too overbearing to the flame. You see, negative space logos are pretty fun, but they can get quite overbearing as well at the same time. So in creating the mountain, I had to make sure that number one, it was legible. By legible, I mean people can understand it. And number two, it doesn't take anything away from the flame, and that the two things can coexist really nicely to create one uniform shape. The big issue that I had going into the design was thinking this is going to be quite detailed. But on the other hand, I didn't mind the detail. Not every logo needs to be simple as everyone says. Sometimes they can be slightly more complicated depending on the use case. But I did manage to create a mountain that I was pretty happy with. Because we're working with polygons, using depth and positive space to create the alternative negative space is really what helped. I created this depth perception by adding 2 polygons essentially. This made it look like a mountain and not just like an animal has bitten out of a flame, making it a purely bad logo. I should probably talk about how I created the flame icon as well. I couldn't find a flame that I was happy with because they were either too abstract, too cute, or too vintagey, rough and rustic. So I ended up just creating a normal flame icon to keep it simple, and I would use the shape builder tool to do this, where I would create it within the golden ratio. And you can see here with the shape builder tool that I can just pull things apart and destroy parts I don't need. With the icon all in place, I was pretty happy. It looked good. However, one thing I did differently in this project is choose typography second. Type is very important for a brand. Most of the time, you can actually tell a brand or a company based on just their typography. Luckily for me though, Passion Creek have an Instagram, which I was stalking. And on there they had this beautiful illustration, and it was for a sermon series I believe they were doing. And I loved this font that I was seeing, but I couldn't find anywhere. I even tried to recreate it myself with my own little flair, but I realized this video would then take 6 months to make, and I can't be doing that. I've got actual work to do. So I went onto My Fonts search, is where you can take a picture or a screen grab of a font, upload it, and it will find where the font was. And I found it. It was called Arpona. I downloaded it and used it straight away, and it was perfect. It had the right amount of history, vintage, outdoorsy look, whilst also looking slightly edgy, which I like. Now, when creating a long logo type with an icon, or what's known as a combination mark, it can get tricky when you have Passion Creek. That's quite long. And then you have to have church at the bottom so people understand that it's a church and not a trail. So I did some gridding and balancing, and the way that this works is you create basically 2 lines at the top of the cap heights of your letters, divide them into 3 or 4 different shapes and create a grid across. And as long as your icon kind of fits neatly within these guides, allowing for some overshooting and undershooting of curves and spikes, then it allows the design to look good on the top to bottom combination and also the left and right. But then there's another issue. What color do we use? I had to be really careful because the color I wanted to choose, which was a nice green, looked way too outdoorsy. If we used it, it would make everything look like a trail, which was an issue that I was getting to. So instead, I wrote some nouns of what I would like the color to be. And because it's Passion Creek Church, we can take some meaning from this and create a stylistic color palette that would work really well by their meaning. I chose this warm, muted off-white because it was warm, it looked nice, it was welcoming. I also chose this dark green. It indicates nature, revival. And I also chose this scarlet red. Scarlet red shows passion, sacrifice, excitement. This color combination really worked nicely and I liked it. It was quite different. And because they're not my real clients, I can get away with doing crazy colors. Leave me alone. After the colors, it was time to create some different compositions. I went onto their website and I found that they had a really nice mantra, which was make disciples, but with attendees crossed out. And I thought, let's create some logos, some artwork that we can put onto some mock-ups. I drew Make Disciples, Passion Creek, all the way around in this archway. And that archway is symbolic of the open doors, the keys to heaven. And also it fit aesthetically really nicely within their illustrations that they were using. I also created this badge design, but in the end, I wasn't very happy with it. Now, one thing I wanted to do very early on in the sketching phase was to be able to have images of people either worshiping or people in the church within the flame icon itself as a really cool visual language that we can use that as a graphic device for other things. So when I had everything ready, I went into Affinity Publisher, which is where I do all of my guidelines, and I started creating a mini presentation of what it would look like. And to mock everything up, I used today's sponsor, Kittl. Kittl is an online design software that you can use in the web browser. You've got fully fledged vector design, but you've also got templates in there if you're new to design or you just need a template to change things. They've got amazing features like collaborating with teams. You can collaborate on the fly on a design on the browser. You don't need to download anything. But by far my favorite feature is the mockup feature. You simply just add your logo or any work that you've got in there and then press mockup and you select your artboard and you can then put the work onto different items of clothing, business cards, A-frames, banners. It's all in there. You can even see the visual effects happening as you're placing your work. If you'd like to try Kittl for mocking up, designing with your teams, then use my code on screen or click the link down below in the description. After I mocked everything up, I started putting it into this presentation. Now this presentation isn't real, it's very bare bones, but you get the point. This is Passion Creek and this is what I thought Passion Creek would look good in. Now if you're someone who likes these types of videos of redesigns, then please subscribe, it means the world to me and it also helps us out when we do this. It takes a long time to make these and we love to design as much as possible online and share our knowledge. And if you want to master bespoke logo type design where you can handcraft your own branded typography, vectorize it professionally, and learn how to present it to a client, then go ahead and check the link down below. There's a 20% off link for Design Academy for my course where you learn all of that. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.